My next guest was an accomplished Broadway performer, belting out classic tunes in shows like The Sound of Music, West Side Story, and Cats. But after fulfilling her lifelong dream of being on stage, Maria Failla unearthed a new talent, becoming something I've never heard of in my life, a Plantfluencer, and teaching a community of people how to care for their plants in her podcast and YouTube show, Bloom and Grow, which has 1 million downloads and reaches listeners in 80+ countries. Maria now uses her voice to plant the seed for a kinder, greener place and help others cultivate joy in their own lives. Please welcome Maria Failla to the show. Now, Maria, I have plants in front of me, and we're going to get to a demonstration with some tips in a second, but that is one big jump from Broadway to this life. First of all, had you heard of a Plantfluencer, or is that something you uniquely created?
There's lots of us out there now. I think with social media, it's become quite the trend. But no, when I started my podcast, there were no other podcasts about houseplant care out there. I was actually an epic plant killer. Anybody here killed a plant before? Raise your hands. Everybody's hand is raised.
Everybody should be raising their hands, because I know you have.
My hand's raised too, right? I was an epic plant killer my whole life. Moved in with my fiance, wanted to care for plants, and decided I would actually figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I think it's such an interesting thing, your next chapter, though, because you're going from Broadway, which is loud, which is, it's got this energy, to a very tranquil world. I mean, the contrast of your next chapter is striking to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's part of what attracted plants to me. I was one of those millennials who would always wake up with my phone, and I would have coffee with my phone in the morning and scroll Instagram and social media. And then when I started caring for plants, I would have coffee with my plants in the morning, and I'd leave my phone in its charger.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, I started cultivating these moments with my plants, but I was really cultivating moments with myself.
Oh, that's fascinating, because, I mean, some of your shows with Evita, Man from La Mancha, I mean, big shows here. Were you always thinking of what your next chapter would be?
Yeah, so I thought I would be a performer until I died. It's the only thing I've ever wanted to do with my entire life. This Bloom and Grow Radio, Bloom and Grow Garden Society, everything
Look at you in Cats.
Yeah, that's me as a cat.
Oh my gosh,
That's me as a maid.
Yeah.
I played every role, right? So I thought I would be performing forever, and then the pandemic hit, and my career evaporated in front of my eyes, right? All of us theater performers couldn't go back to work. I was in a show in New York City that closed 3 days before opening night, which kind of broke my brain a little bit. And I took some time to, drink some wine and cry in my bathtub about it. And then I realized, I've been nurturing this passion project of plants and my little plant hobby for a while. What if I had 100% of my time to dedicate to this, to helping other people go through this transformation that I experienced with plants? And a month later, I got the opportunity to write a book, and here I am talking to you, Tamron.
I know, and this book is so sweet. I love the title, Growing Joy. And when we come back, we're going to talk about growing joy with Maria, and I'm going to show her a picture of a plant that I've had for 11 years, and it has 3 leaves on it. We're going to show you after the break.
We'll figure it out.
All hour long, we've been talking about changing directions in your life. How can you do it? Well, Maria Failla went from Broadway shows, some of the biggest of Broadway, The Sound of Music, West Side Story, the list goes on, to becoming really a Plantfluencer and now author. You are going to take us through some of your tips that you share on your popular show and in the book with your fans. So what do we have here?
Yeah, so the end of the book is actually a plant killer to plant person crash course. So these are some...
Killer.
Yes.
You do know I do a crime show, right?
Yes.
My other show is a crime.
Yeah, exactly. There we go. So when you're caring for plants, you have to think about what they experience in nature and then trying to replicate it indoors.
Okay.
So when we come to watering, there's top watering, which is
what most
recommend.
of us probably do. We just pour over the top.
So you want to water thoroughly, but not frequently. So you want to give it a good drink, like a rainfall, and then you're going to let the water drip out the bottom of the pot.
Oh, you pick it up?
Yeah.
What if the pot's too big?
Then you're gonna eyeball it, but you can see the water coming out of the saucer. You know, like if the plant sits in a saucer.
And that's when you know there's enough water.
Yeah, so you want the soil to be saturated, then you'll dump this water out.
Oh, so don't leave it in the little pan underneath it?
I wouldn't. If you can leave it for like an hour, but if it's sitting there for over 12 hours, I would dump it.
Really?
Because you don't want the roots to sit in the water at the bottom because that could make them rot.
I thought that was the whole point of the little saucer at the bottom.
Yeah. No, that's to save your tabletop.
Okay. All right. Well, so I'll go through this next tip real quick, and then I'll show you my problem.
Yeah,
right.
So another way to water, if you have a plant that you've maybe forgotten to water for a while and the soil is compact, this is a technique called bottom watering. You take a plant that is in a pot with holes, and you actually sit it in here. This is actually really fun to do with kids,
and it just sorbs up like a sponge?
Yep,
oh,
and
cool.
the water line will go down, so it's a fun way to teach kids about capillary action.
All right, well, the audience is waiting to see this plant. I've had this plant for 12 years. In fact, it was the last before my father's passing, so it's sentimental.
Yes.
It's 12 years old.
Okay.
It has, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves.
Yeah.
I've repotted it, I've replanted it. It's survived the toddler who attacks it regularly, but it won't grow. It's still alive, though.
Yes, it's still alive, and you can totally work your way back from here. What I would assume, now I need to like get my hands in the dirt here, but I'm guessing that this plant, was it much larger when you got it and leaves have fallen off?
I don't know. It's 12 years ago.
If it was larger. So what I'm guessing is there was probably something that happened with the roots, and this plant looks way too small for the pot that it's in. And what happens is when you put it in too big of a pot, the soil doesn't dry out fast enough. And so that can also cause root rot. Root rot ends up being like 90% of the reason why plants die.
So it's savable?
Oh, yeah.
It's alive.
So what I would recommend is maybe putting it in a smaller pot.
Smaller pot.
And making sure that it's getting as much light as possible so that plants eat light, right? Photosynthesis helps plants make the food that they eat.
Right, smaller pot.
The more light you can probably give this plant without burning it, I would recommend a little bit more light, maybe a little smaller pot, and a lot of love, and maybe speaking to it. That might help too.
Well, yeah, the plant's name is Tupac.
Tupac, yeah.
I don't know why, but one day I have no idea of my favorite rapper, and I named the plant Tupac. So I will talk to Tupac more, and hopefully it will grow. Maria, congratulations on all the success that you've had.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And in the book, of course, let me pull this right up right here. The book, Growing Joy, The Plant Lover's Guide to Cultivating Happiness and Plants, is available June 7th. Thank you so much for joining us on this.
Thank you.